Hi. As I'm currently learning Touchdesigner for my graduation at Goblin School, and because I've also learned how to play the drums for the past few months, I was interested by blending the two of them to create cool audio-reactive visual effects. But because I didn't find enough resources on the subject on the internet at first, in this video I will show you how you can achieve to plug your MIDI controller, in my case a drum kit, into Touch, and how to create your best screensavers. The stuff you are going to need is a drum kit, a USB-B cable to USB to plug your drum module into your computer. You may need a converter from USB to USB-C. And finally, a computer to record your audio. The easiest that I found is to use a MacBook that comes with GarageBand. And you're good to go. Okay, so now let's go with Touchdesigner. I assume that you already know a bit of the software. If not, I'm going to re-explain some things. First, Touch is node-based. So that means when I have a node, it can have on its left inputs and on its right outputs. I can connect two of them really easily by drag and dropping them into another. So you have multiple nodes. You have top, which stands for texture operator. You can have chops, which are channel operators, and subs, which are surface operator. Those three ones will be interesting today. So basically tops are all your images or pixel-based channels. The chops are just like signals, and the subs are like geometries and textures. Oh, and also the matte like material will be useful too. Also, each one of the nodes have their parameters, which means that you can change values inside the node. And you can open the node menu by clicking tab and search for anything that you want. If you're really new to Touchdesigner, I recommend you to stop this video right there and to check for the references that I've put on the description. And now let's go create something. Okay, so just select your first noise that you want to cast as a top. And you also just want the red channel. Now you can go with math. Just combine channels, click on add, and multiply it by 2. You can also create a slider. You'll see later on why I'm doing this. Combine the two of them, and you have this type of range. Now you want to throw it into a chop. Then you want a legacy chop. Then you can create a level, add 2 for brightness and gamma. Then you can throw it into a fill and select fill. For translate, just put minus dot 1.3. Yeah, I think that's great. So create a feedback, create a transform, and set the 0.01 value, and then create a null. From there, now you can create a hover and an RGB key. Just put the feedback the over into the feedback and take the feet to go into the over. Great. Now you want to create a ramp that will have 2 black points and 2 white points. It will be vertical. And you also want to create a comp, like a composite, to multiply those two values. Great. Create a null based on that. So we have created the spectrum just to apply it then on a material. So go on Math and select PBR material. Based on this null, we will create 4 things: an ambient occlusion map, a normal map, an 8 map, and a emissive map. For the ambient occlusion, you can create a level and put it like 1.3, 2, and 1.6. Create a null. Then for the 8 map, for the normal map, sorry, you can create a normal map. And the same way, create a null. For the 8 map, for the 8 map, you can just create a null. And finally, for the emissive, you can create a level and put the brightness at, let's say, 1.5. And finish by a null. I also recommend you to name your channels. Okay, and we are missing the most important thing, which is a color. So let's create a ramp and create some colors, I guess. Now you can add a multiply to your emissive and plug it there, and just rename it color. Then you can drag and drop all of your values into this. So ambient occlusion, color, this is the normal, put the bump at 3, enable the 8 map, and send the emissive there. Displace vertices, just go with 1.5 and 1.25, I guess, and into RGB put blank. So you have now a cool material with colors. Now on the other hand, we are going to create a soap, which will be a sphere. We want it to be 200 by 200 columns and rows. Now we're going to twist it on the x-axis by a 50 and 0 at roll-off. Then we're going to twist it again by a 100 at roll-off 10, but on the z-axis. And now the fun begins. So I'm going to create a material. So it waits for a material, so we drag and drop the PBR1, so we can see maybe something is happening. Then we go for texture. We want it to be rows and columns, and we want it to be scaled at 5. And don't forget to add the attribute create soap and compute tangents and normals. Okay, so we see something right now. Okay, it's not moving because we didn't make move the colors. So come back into the ramp and on the face enter appstime.seconds, which will help time goes. You see that the material moves. Maybe it's really fast, so multiply it by 0.3. Come back into there and you see that it's moving. You can play with vertical, horizontal. I quite like the circular one, but our sphere is really fat, so maybe we can reduce it by the radius, so put 0.7 maybe. So based on that, you just have to create now a geometry, and okay, that's render great. Now you will create a light, a camera, and a renderer, which is a top. Now just go on to the lights, and you can add more dimmer to make it more colorful, and that's great, I think. So based on the renderer, you can add a Chan mix, and because we want it to be more blurry, you can add a blur and play with it. Once you're satisfied with it, you can just create another render. You can create a comp and mix the two of them, so you have something more balanced. Now to create a background, we will add another composite and create a new effect. So I will use my color here, just put it there and call it background. I will create a noise and we will custom the noise. So does it move? No, I don't think so. It will have like this. Okay, so something like that maybe. Blend the two into a composite. Okay, and put that composite into the other composite. We had a problem because this is not the same size as this one, so we can use another resolution. So the maximum for the free version of Touchdesigner is 280 by 280, 1280, sorry, by 1280. So put that resolution into those and also into those renderers. I think that's the solution. And yes, it works. But I don't want it to be applied on the surface. I want the composite to add. So that's my background is behind my sphere. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that. I think that's finished. If you want to play with it, you can. So my big advice will be to change the noises, or maybe add appstime.seconds at everywhere, you know. So change those values. It will change everything on your renders. Okay, so this will be a cool part. Once you've plugged your MIDI device into your computer, in Touchdesigner, just go on Dialog and click on MIDI device mapper. Here are all your MIDI devices. Click on Create New Mapping, and in device, select the one that you want. You can now close this window and click on Tab. Select the MIDI in chop. It should be active, and once you will be hitting something, like for example my snare, I see a channel with a value. If I hit the crash, for example, I see another one. In my case, I have multiple channels, but I want to select each one of them individually, so I will just click on the select chop and take the first one, which is the snare, and rename it from its name to snare. So now when I hit it, cool. And I want to do it for every one of them. As you may have a lot of channels, you want to reuse that logic by creating your custom component. So create a base component and cut your logic into it. So now for each one of the selects, you want to add a out chop, which you can call like out snare and out crash, and unzoom. Now you see that your base components, which you can call drums, just drums, will have two outputs, and by taking these outputs into something, you will have the value outside of your custom component. Now you can plug each one of them into your animations. But first, you may see that if I hit my snare, the value goes from 0 to 1 and from 1 to 0 very fast. And that's a problem, because, for example, if I want to animate the transform value of a noise, it will not be really animated. So for that, I have to create a speed chop, which will keep all the values that will be sent to it. Really cool. But that's very fast. That's still very fast. And maybe I want it to be more ease. So I will create a lag. And I can ease in and ease out the values. So now when I'll be hitting my snare, cool. And I can increase this lag. to be very smooth. Now I can use this to animate anything that I want. For example, if I want to animate the twist strength of that sphere, I just have to take the value of my lag by clicking this little star and drag and drop the value into strength and click on Chop Reference. So now, okay, so I see that the value changed, but it's too little to see real changes. So that's why I created this math. You can go into range and you see that your value will go from 0 to 1 to something else. So just multiply by 10. But we didn't see any changes. So multiply it by 100 maybe. Then you can start seeing changes. Let's go for 500. Okay, that's working. And I prefer to use the lag because if I was using only the math thing, okay, so the speed and the lag, because if I was using only the math things, just see. Didn't work, huh? So yeah, the speed thing is better. And by adding the lag, I have smooth animation like this. For a more complete example, you can see here that I've used all my drum kit channels to animate things. Most of them are based on speed and lag, but there are some special cases that I want to show you. For example, the Tom 2, which is used for changing the top layer into this ball. So when I hit it, it changes. I've used this logic chop, which basically send a 0 or 1. The count just add each time. I use also a lag to have this smooth blending value and a null. Let's say that I have those 4 effects that I want to add on the top of my ball. I'll just create a switch. So the switch has an index, and I can basically connect every one of my effects into the switch, and by changing the index, the effect selected will change. Now I will add the value of the switch on the layer of my ball, and when I change, great. If I want them to be blended, I can just toggle this switch and it will be really smooth. Last thing, I have to connect the value of my tom into the index. And now when I click, okay, maybe I have to reset the value first. Okay, and now when I click, that changes. Great.